Hello, and welcome everyone to this virtual program. Today's topic focuses on nutrition and eye disease. We would like to welcome everyone to the Macular Degeneration Association's continuing programs on different eye diseases and different treatment methods for said diseases. We would not be able to do, of course, these programs without generous sponsorship from people like Regeneron, Apellis, Sun Pharma, AbbVie, MacuHealth, and No Television. We would like to thank them for their support, as well as people just like you. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so we are supported by tax-deductible donations made directly to the organization, and we greatly appreciate you helping us to continue our mission to not only get research on the subject, but also to be able to bring information to people about these problems that they may be suffering with, and hopefully some answers as well. We would now like to introduce you to our doctor for today's presentation. Dr. Poteet specializes in pediatric vision care and ocular nutrition, having completed a residency in ocular disease. She's a certified nutrition specialist with a Master's of Science in Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. With 20 years of dedicated research, she focused on utilizing nutritional medicine to mitigate the risk and progression of disease. Dr. Poteet has also lectured and written extensively on nutrition with a focus on the microbiome. She has published numerous articles in peer-reviewed journals on topics such as omega-3 fatty acids, genetic testing in age-related macular degeneration, the microbiome and gut-brain axis, and myopia management. Her specific interests include the gut-brain axis, ocular disease, with a focus on age-related macular degeneration, healthy aging, and brain health. Dr. Poteet, you have our attention.
So ocular health, it's more than meets the eye, the sight-saving power of nutrition. Financial disclosures, I am a part-time consultant for Bausch & Lomb, nutrition writer and clinical editor for the journal Presbyopia and the Aging Eye. So learning objectives today. I want to identify oxidative stress and inflammation as processes that underlie most chronic diseases of aging, including ocular disease. I wanted to identify age-related macular degeneration, the #1 cause of visual impairment in the developed world after 50, as a lifestyle disease where inflammaging is a mechanism of damage. I want to describe the history behind why eye care practitioners prescribe nutraceuticals for macular degeneration. We are one of the few specialties, if only specialty I know, that actually our standard of care is to prescribe a nutraceutical for certain stages of macular degeneration. And we can thank the NIH and NEI, the National Institute of Health's National Eye Institute, for the rigorous placebo-controlled clinical trials that changed the way we practice. I want to describe a Mediterranean diet and why we know it's beneficial for all stages of macular degeneration. And the last thing I want to touch on, one of my favorite topics in nutrition are the dietary carotenoids, lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin, so important in eye and brain health. So the eye is an extension of the brain. William Shakespeare said the eyes are the windows to the soul, but they are also the windows into systemic health. So over 100 years ago, public health was defined by Winslow at Yale as the art of preventing diseases, not just curing them, through lifestyle, food, hygiene, and environmental health. So using food as medicine is not new. We as a society are coming back slowly to more mindfulness in nutrition and wellness. So, poor diet is the leading cause of mortality in the United States, causing more than 500,000 deaths per year. Listen, Americans are sick. I'm going to read some statistics that are pretty alarming. 1 in 2 adult Americans are pre-diabetic or diabetic. 1 in 3 Medicare dollars are spent on diabetes. 1 in 4 US healthcare dollars are spent on diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is no longer an adult onset disease. There is a local children's hospital in Atlanta that has just now opened a type 2 diabetes clinic for kids. We know the longer a person lives with diabetes, the greater the risk of vision loss from diabetic retinopathy, which is one of the leading causes of blindness. Cardiovascular disease afflicts about 122 million people and causes roughly 840,000 deaths each year. And 3 in 4 adults are overweight or obese. So this was an article published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2017. Just 10 dietary factors are estimated to cause nearly 1,000 deaths every day from heart disease, stroke, and diabetes alone. And so these factors are consumption of high sodium, high processed meats, high sugar sweetened beverages, high intake of red meats unprocessed, and low intake nuts and seeds, seafood, omega-3s, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and polyunsaturated fatty acids. So inflammation. This was an article in Time magazine of all things years ago. The secret killer, the surprising link between inflammation and heart attacks, cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases. Excuse me, what you can do to fight it. So we know that chronic sustained inflammation is one of the mechanistic pillars of aging that are shared by all chronic diseases of aging, including ocular disease, including macular degeneration, the gut microbiota. So I doubt there's anybody now who hasn't heard of prebiotics, probiotics, gut microbiota. We have symbiotic relationship with our microbes. There's trillions that live in and on us, with the greatest amount living in the large intestine. Our gut microbiota, which the health of our microbiota, good bugs, bad bugs, is largely dictated by our diet. Our gut microbiota actually is what drives chronic sustained inflammation. So eating a healthy diet, eating tons of fruits, tons of vegetables, actually influences our gut microbiota to decrease inflammation in the body. And that's going to help every chronic disease of aging, such as macular degeneration. American diet is a major contributor to ocular inflammation, from ocular surface dryness all the way to retinal issues. This is an article published in Clinical Nutrition. The inflammatory potential of diet is associated with the risk of age-related eye diseases. So, we need to start thinking about letting our food be our medicine. A pro-inflammatory diet was associated with increased risk of cataracts and macular degeneration. So again, Hippocrates said over 2,000 years ago, the solution, let food be thy medicine. I do want to applaud Tufts University. They opened the first Food as Medicine Institute recently, where physicians can prescribe medically tailored meals. They advocate for nutritional research. So I'm, really, really excited to see where this is going. So cataracts. Every single one of us, if we live long enough, will develop cataracts. Things that speed up cataract development: poor diet, UV radiation, certain diseases. So, we knew risk factors: age. Again, every single one of us, if we live long enough, will develop cataracts. Some people develop them much sooner. Diabetes, too much sunlight. I do an eye clinic in Guatemala in the summers, and I see visually significant cataracts in young people in early 40s who don't wear sunglasses and work outside all day at a high altitude. Smoking, obesity, family history, previous eye injury or inflammation, prolonged use of corticosteroids and excessive alcohol. And so how do we prevent cataracts? Don't smoke. Don't smoke, don't smoke, don't smoke. And that is applicable to everything from macular degeneration to any system in our body. So a healthy diet with plenty of fruits and vegetables, sunglasses, and reduce alcohol use. And I do want to say a quick thing about cataracts. There is good data coming out now that says that cataracts are a risk factor, a modifiable risk factor for cognitive decline or dementia. I used to wait to refer my patients for cataract surgery for the cataract, with the cataract surgeons until it reached a kind of a point of visual disturbance. I don't wait to refer anymore. If someone has a cataract that's impairing their vision at all, I refer them, simply because the data that is out now that states that cataracts are a modifiable risk factor, cataract surgery, for early cognitive decline. We know the visual system provides a lot of sensory input to the brain. And when we reduce that input, it can affect cognition. So again, I refer sooner than later. So macular degeneration. Macular degeneration is an example of a disease of aging where oxidative stress and chronic inflammation play a central role. And we do know that chronic inflammation and oxidative stress can be mitigated through lifestyle and diet. We know it's a progressive retinal disease. My mission is to kind of repair the roof before it starts raining. In the words of my mentor, Dr. Stu Richer, I want to get patients early in the process, and talk. In fact, I talk about diet with every patient, whether you're 5 or 95. My goal is to prevent it as much as possible. So prevalence. We know that macular degeneration is the most common cause of irreversible vision loss in the Western world in individuals over 50 years of age. By 65 to 75 years, 11% of us will have some central vision loss from macular degeneration. Greater than 75 years, 30% of us will have some vision loss from macular degeneration. We know there's two types, dry and atrophic or wet. Risk factors. What are the risk factors? Age. Well, we can't really do anything about that. Family history. Macular degeneration is a multi-genetic disease. You can have genes associated with it and never develop it. And you can develop it without those genes. However, of all the multi-genetic diseases, there is a strong genetic component. Having a relative with macular degeneration, lifetime risk increases from 12 to 50%. Smoking, don't smoke. If you do, please quit. Current smokers have a 2 to 3-fold increased risk of macular degeneration. Smoking increases oxidative stress and inflammation in the body, and it is so bad for us. Hypertension, again, the eyes, anything that affects the heart, anything that affects the vascular system is going to affect eye health. And I think this is super important to think about. Genes are not always destiny, okay? They're not. For multi-genetic diseases like macular degeneration, lifestyle can modulate gene expression. Lifestyle can determine which genes are turned on, which genes are turned off. Hence the science of epigenetics. Excuse me. This is the retina, and the eyes are part of the brain. Every systemic disease can affect the eyes. As an eye care practitioner, I think it's really cool that I can visualize the microvasculature up close without a lot of tissue overlying on every patient. And microvascular changes predict changes elsewhere in the body later on. They are an early warning system. This is a beautiful, healthy retina. This yellow spot in the middle, not the optic nerve with the vessels coming out of it. to the right of that is called the macula. And this is a beautiful, healthy retina. This is a macula with macular degeneration. If you see the yellow spots, those are called drusen. They are waste products in the retina. They are from chronic sustained inflammation. So drusen are small yellow or white deposits of lipid and calcium that build up in Bruch's membrane. Interestingly, the amyloid beta plaques that form in the brains of Alzheimer's patients have a similar composition of protein and fats, and they utilize the same mechanisms to damage surrounding tissues. A lot of people call macular degeneration Alzheimer's of the eye. So how long have we known that diet is important in macular degeneration? Well, this is from the very first NHANES study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology, 1988. A diet rich in fruits and vegetables with vitamins A and C was inversely associated with macular degeneration. So we've known this for quite some time, the importance of diet. And now I'm going to talk about the National Institutes of Health randomized control trial that changed the way we clinicians treat macular degeneration. Before we had the NIH trials, really the only thing we had that was, evidence-based to tell our patients for macular degeneration was, hey, quit smoking. Then I have a lot of gratitude to the NIH for these trials, because what they showed us is that a vitamin and mineral supplement with antioxidants was associated with a statistically significant reduction in disease progression in patients with intermediate or advanced macular degeneration by about 25% after 5 years. And again, before we had this trial, all we had for patients is to say, hey, quit smoking. But now we know, hey, this vitamin and mineral, AREDS and AREDS2, decreases progression rate. And it's a vitamin. You take it, you buy it over the counter. And this is the timeline of the NIH trials, the AREDS and AREDS2 supplements that change the way we practice and change the way we think about macular degeneration. And these are the components of the AREDS2. So we know that nutrients work synergistically. Nutrients work together, and often the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So we're looking at a few vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. We're looking at a few here. But what about diet? What does diet do? Let's see. So remember I said that anything that benefits the heart is going to be good for the vascular system of the eye. Nutrition is hard to study. It really is hard to study. This was actually, though, a very well-designed trial, the Prediment trial. And it was a multi-center trial in Spain, looked at persons at high risk for cardiovascular disease. 7,447 people were randomly assigned. Mediterranean diet supplemented with nuts, Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, and the control diet, low fat. So low fat was the control diet versus the other two groups. And the cool thing about the study is participants were actually mailed the olive oil and nuts in the mail. So what this trial showed us is that a Mediterranean diet is beneficial in reducing cardiovascular disease by as much as 30%. That's a big deal, 30% reduction in the incidence of cardiovascular disease by following a Mediterranean diet. So then we say, okay, if this is great for the heart, what about the eyes? What will a Mediterranean diet do for the eyes? And what does the data show? Let's see. So looking at the data, we know now that a high adherence to a Mediterranean diet is associated with less progression to late macular degeneration by 25 to 40%. This is huge. Again, if I have macular degeneration, if I'm the offspring of somebody with macular degeneration, I'm going to be eating a Mediterranean diet. I'm going to be focusing on a Mediterranean diet to help prevent and delay progression. So we know a higher intake of a Mediterranean diet is associated with decreased risk of progression to late macular degeneration for both neovascular and geographic atrophy, for both forms of severe macular degeneration. And this is a really big deal. 29% risk reduction for geographic atrophy. It's a really, really big deal. Excuse me. So what component of the Mediterranean diet is most associated with a reduced risk of progression of macular degeneration? And what the data is showing is it's the fish. The fish is the component of the Mediterranean diet that is associated with a 31% decreased risk of progression to geographic atrophy, which is late stage macular degeneration. And this is a really big deal. We know that geographic atrophy is a sign of smoldering chronic inflammation that has been going on for quite some time. So this is pulling data from two more studies that showed a higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet was associated with a 41% reduced risk of incident advanced macular degeneration. These findings support the role of a diet rich in healthful, nutrient-rich foods, such as fruits, vegetables, legumes, and fish, and the prevention, excuse me, of macular degeneration. So what are the principal ingredients of a Mediterranean diet? And again, single nutrients are great, but when you can get your nutrients from diet, there are so many wonderful components, thousands and thousands of polyphenols and components that act synergistically, that decrease inflammation in the body and promote healthy genetic expression. Healthy fats, olive oil. Olive oil should be the mainstay fat of your diet. I'm eating fish and poultry at least twice a week. Low consumption of red meats and high consumption of plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and nuts. Moderate consumption of dairy products, mostly cheese and yogurt. So I do want to say something about fish, fatty fish. I tell my patients smash. Eat smash twice a week. And they said, well, what is smash? And it stands for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. We know that we have to be mindful of eating too much mercury in fish. And there are some fish that have high levels of mercury. We must be mindful of that. So I have patients just say the word smash. You know, you don't have to spend a ton of money on fresh fish at the grocery store. It is super expensive. A can of sardines, I buy actually sockeye salmon in a can and eat that. So there are different ways to eat fatty fish and save money. Again, a can of sardines is not expensive. So this is the Mediterranean diet food pyramid. So I'm just looking at the time to make sure I'm not going too quickly. So this food pyramid looks very different from the USDA food pyramid. This food pyramid is really health promoting. So we know the bottom of the food pyramid here, the things that we should be eating most of: fruits, vegetables, grains, olive oil, beans, nuts, legumes, seeds, herbs, and spices. Fish and seafood, again, the data is super strong on fish and seafood twice a week for cardiovascular benefit, neurological benefit, ocular benefit, at least twice a week. You know, if you look at studies on fish oil, studies on fish oil are kind of all over the place. They're inconsistent, but what's not inconsistent is the eating the fish itself. Consistently across the data, fatty fish 2 times a week. I tell my patients 3, hoping they'll make it to 2. Twice a week is very protective for neurological conditions, cardiovascular, eye, super important. Poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt, and meats and sweets at the top. listen, Mediterranean diets offer good health and longevity. And listen, there are so many different types of diet in the news media. And I am someone who I just want to see what the evidence says. And across the board, the evidence screams that a Mediterranean diet is the way to go. So what, again, the evidence says that Mediterranean diet's super rich in vitamins. Just like I said, reduces the risk of heart disease, reduces the incidence of cancer, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's, and reduces the risk of macular degeneration and cataracts. And I do want to add dry eye. Dry eye is a chronic inflammatory condition of ocular surface irritation, inflammation, and a Mediterranean diet reduces that risk. So, you know, the beautiful thing about nutrition and nutraceuticals is when you use them, you are not just, they don't act locally, they work throughout the whole body on multiple systems. You will never hear me lecture where I don't talk about the gut microbiome. So again, we have trillions and trillions of microorganisms that live on us, in us, around us. These microorganisms are important for helping to regulate our immune system. The gut microbiome, again, rivals the liver in the number of biochemical processes for which it operates. The gut microbiome drives health and wellness or disease. One of the ways we can modulate the gut microbiome, the most powerful way, is through diet. So low-grade inflammation sustained by dysbiosis, and dysbiosis is a lack of beneficial bacteria in our gut. And a leaky gut has been shown to contribute to the development of macular degeneration. So this is a modifiable risk factor. Minding our microbiome by feeding it a lot of produce and healthy foods is going to help lower systemic inflammation, and it's got a role in macular degeneration. Okay, so I love this slide. This shows how a Mediterranean style diet, rich in varied fresh produce, contributes to eubiosis. And eubiosis is an abundance of beneficial or good bacteria in our gut. And we know that this does so many wonderful things throughout the whole body. And we do know that a diet rich in ultra-processed foods, which I call it, unfortunately, SAD diet, the standard American diet, causes an overgrowth of bad bacteria in our guts, dysbiosis, which causes some bad stuff in our bodies, and predisposes us to disease. So again, you know, we as Americans, we are sick. We as a society, we are plagued with chronic diseases that are lifestyle, and we can do something about that. And I think the time is now to make a change. Again, you know, when I know that kids, 1 in 4 high school teenagers has prediabetes or diabetes. And again, this is not sustainable. So the latest AREDS data, so the AREDS trials were the National Institutes of Health, National Eye Institute's randomized control trial that brought us the AREDS vitamins for macular degeneration. So what the NIH did is they did a 10-year follow-up study on all the AREDS participants. 14,000 eyes were looked at, and this was recently presented. So the main aim of the study was to use data from the AREDS and AREDS 2 trial to examine potential associations between the dietary intake of multiple ingredients and progression to late-stage macular degeneration. And what did they find? So this study strengthened previous evidence for protective associations between the dietary intake of specific nutrients and the risk of late AMD. We know that the vitamins A, D, E, and C are antioxidants and beneficial. B vitamins support something called mitochondrial function, and we know we need adequate B vitamins. Mitochondria are compromised when there is a deficiency of any B vitamins. Reports from human donors with macular degeneration suggest that mitochondrial defects are a key event in macular degeneration pathology. Mitochondria are powerhouses of the cells. Carotenoids. I'm going to talk in a little bit about carotenoids. Carotenoids are the beautiful colors in the foods we eat. In nature, there's about 750 carotenoids. Our food, there's about 50 different ones. And about 20 of those end up in our plasma, in our serum. Of those 20 carotenoids, our eyes and our brain grab onto lutein and zeaxanthin. And it deposits in our retinas and our brains. And we're going to talk about that in a little while. Minerals and fatty acids, increased risk, high cholesterol, high saturated fats. Now, monounsaturated fats, this is not talking about olive oil in America. When monounsaturated fats are studied in diet, the main source in America are meat and dairy sources. In Europe, it's actually olive oil. So fish. More talk about fish. What the data showed in this 10-year post-hoc analysis, from the NIH trials that the NIH conducted, and what the data showed about eating a Mediterranean type diet. And I read this slide, I read the results of this, and I'll be honest, sometimes it upsets me because I don't know why we're not screaming this from the rooftops. We know, and what the data has showed is that eating a Mediterranean diet, particularly a lot of fish, and remember I talked about SMASH, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring, but eating a lot of fish may be beneficial for those with early or even intermediate age-related macular degeneration. A diet high in fish can reduce the chances of developing late AMD, progressing to late AMD, by 65% for patients who have protective genes, 65%. In the general AMD population, a high fish diet reduced progression of intermediate to geographic atrophy by 31%. And high adherence to a Mediterranean diet reduced progression from intermediate to late AMD, either forms, by 25 to 40%. Again, I think we should be screaming this from the rooftops. I want to talk real fast about omega-3s, because we all know, we hear omega-3s, they're the #1 supplement that is taken in the United States. I have a colleague, well, first of all, we do know that omega-3s are super important. 2/3 of US adults and 95% of US children don't consume enough omega-3s in their daily diet to meet their nutritional needs. Essential omega-3s reduce inflammation in the body and prevent disease. We know the retina has a lot of omega-3s in the retina. It's super important for retinal and brain health. Macular degeneration and dry eye disease are diseases of inflammation. So we know this. So why aren't we all taking an omega-3 supplement? I have been prescribing omega-3 supplements for more than 20 years. I have a colleague in nutrition, a PhD, whose lab at George Washington University just completed a year-long study on 72 over-the-counter omega-3 products. And the findings kind of shed light, for me anyway, on why the data on omega-3s is just kind of all over the place, whether they're beneficial or not. Because most of the commercial products tested were found to be rancid. And we know that taking something that's rancid actually increases inflammation in the body. 68% of flavored omega-3 over the counter and 13% of unflavored exceeded the total safe limit for rancidity. And so I truly believe that's why there's so much inconsistent data on taking omega-3s over the counter. There are some good good quality omega-3 products out there. And I prescribe the ones that I know are good quality. So it's important when your practitioner says, okay, I want you to start omega-3s, but this is the brand I want you to take. Listen to them. Don't grab the cheapest thing off the shelf, because oftentimes you're grabbing a product that's been oxidized. I do want to mention fatty fish though. Fatty fish, eating the fish itself across the board, consistent data shows health benefits, extreme health benefits. So it's not the fatty fish that's inconsistent data, it's the supplements. So make sure you use the supplement that your healthcare practitioner recommends. Don't buy a cheaper version, and make sure you do your fatty fish. Okay. So another picture, this is a beautiful, healthy retina. I wish everyone's eyes looked like this. The macula is this the center center dot there, to the right of the optic nerve. So the macula is the highest density of photoreceptors in the entire eye. I tell my patients the macula is where all the good sharp vision comes from. The macula is yellow, and it's yellow because the beautiful layer of carotenoids that deposits there. And listen, we can't make this macular pigment ourselves. We have to get it from diet. But it's yellow in color and absorbs excess blue light and UV light. The yellow color comes from its contents of lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. So again, we can't make these. We have to get them from diet. Macular pigments filter blue light. There was a study that just came out this week that looked at intraocular lens implants for cataract surgery. There are some that you can get that have a yellow blue light filter on them. And it was actually beneficial for those with macular degeneration. Again, the data has been conflicting in the past, but it was just what a new study showed. But we do know that macular pigment filters the harmful blue lights. So carotenoids ingested from the diet, that's why I say eat the rainbow, because when we eat the rainbow, we do get carotenoids in our diet. The standard American diet, we only get about 2 milligrams of lutein in the standard American diet. Well, we need about 20 a day. So we're just not getting enough. So we ingest the carotenoids from our diet. They absorb in the intestine. They're transported in the bloodstream. And again, our eyes and our brain, both of them, have a preferential uptake for lutein and zeaxanthin. And the third carotenoid, mesozeaxanthin, not as much found in diet, but still super important, is converted from lutein in the macula. So all three of those super important. Lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. They have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, and they defend against free radicals and oxidative stress. So super important. Listen, the backs of our eyes get bombarded with tons of light. Our eyes get stressed out, tons of oxidative stress. And we do know that antioxidants and anti-inflammatory diet mitigates that stress. Lutein and zeaxanthin and mesozeaxanthin specifically. They modulate gene expression related to inflammation and cytokine production. Lutein and zeaxanthin and mesozeaxanthin mitigate the inflammatory response within ocular tissue. Super, super, super important. Again, standard American diet, we only get about 2 milligrams a day of lutein. We need 20. And reduce something called factor D, an enzyme associated with the alternative complement activation pathway. And last but not least, contribute to regulating systemic inflammation. So again, lutein, zeaxanthin, super, super important. So where do we get lutein and zeaxanthin? And mesozeaxanthin. Food. Again, most of us don't get enough. Kale, spinach, highest in lutein. The greens. I tell my patients eat the greens. So many of my kids I see, first of all, every patient I see, I talk to them about diet. Every single patient I see. So many patients just don't eat anything green. Egg yolk, egg yolk is actually got high levels of lutein, egg yolk. You know, in breast milk, the color of breast milk is yellow because of lutein. An interesting thing about babies' brains, they have an even higher preferential uptake for lutein than even adults do. So we know that it's doing something really important in those babies' brains as well. So again, these are the sources. There are some really good supplement companies that make products with lutein that if we're not, of course, we should always try to get them from diet. But if we need extra reassurance, we've got some good companies out there. Okay, so I don't mean to scare you with this slide, especially around lunchtime. This is actually slide was shared with me by my mentor who passed away this year, Dr. Stuart Richer. So lutein plays a role in prevention of long-term UV blue ocular radiation damage from the front of the eye. You know, basal cell carcinoma, the lower eyelid, very, very common site for basal cell carcinoma, pterygium, cataracts, and macular degeneration. Lutein protects all from all of these things. Actually had this slide up at home, and my son saw the slide, and he just graduated from Georgia Tech, super smart, but he's looking, he's like, oh, mom, that is really gross. So let me get off this slide. This is what I see every day. So again, nutrients act synergistically, okay? Nutrient synergism is where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I have tremendous gratitude to the NIH for providing us with the AREDS vitamins for macular degeneration. If you look at nutrients and a Mediterranean diet and everything, thousands, instead of a few nutrients, thousands of things interacting to promote wellness. I'm really excited about how food can be even so much more powerful at mitigating the risk of progression of macular degeneration and all eye diseases. So again, everything is connected. I love this slide. I put this slide in every lecture I give. I use this slide. I love this quote by John Muir. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Everything's related, everything. And that's the beauty of nutraceuticals in the body. They don't act locally, they act throughout the whole body. These two humans here in the boat are my boys, and therefore why I became interested in nutrition and functional medicine, why I have a lot of gratitude towards the Institute for Functional Medicine and the American Nutrition Association. And again, everything is connected. What we feed ourselves is so much more than food, though. It is our relationships. It is nature. It is having a heart of gratitude. All of these things we know affect inflammation in the body, cortisol levels. So again, everything's connected. And that's the beauty of nutrition, nutrient synergy, and nature. So this is my mom growing up, she would always use the KISS principle, keep it simple. And she would say, keep it simple. Stupid. I don't know if that's the right way, but she would say, keep it simple. So my KISS principle for healthy eating for eye health, super, super easy, super easy. Just three things. Eat the rainbow. Much of your plate should be colorful fruits and vegetables, super easy. Eat the rainbow. The second thing, eat fatty fish, smash at least twice a week. And that's salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardine, herring. Listen, anchovies in a can, I mean, cheap, super cheap. Olive oil and nuts. Olive oil and nuts should be mainstays. And again, it's super, 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 super simple. We can do so much to promote health and wellness and vitality and mitigate the risk of disease occurring and disease progression by being mindful of what we eat. Every time we feed ourselves food, we're either feeding disease or fighting it. So So it is, again, I have seen lives changed by being mindful of nutrition. So it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Or another favorite quote of mine, follow those who seek the truth, but flee from those who found it. We are entering a new frontier of our understanding of wellness and how to optimize health. We don't suffer from a lack of information. We suffer from a lack of what the correct information is. And what is emerging is that no single food or nutrient is a golden ticket, with maybe the exception of fatty fish, but rather it's the sum of all the parts, the cumulative effect of what we feed ourselves, that promotes patterns of health and wellness. You know, I actually, that's the end of my lecture. Now we're ready for questions. I do want to thank everyone for being here, and I want to thank the Macular Degeneration Association. The Macular Degeneration Association is doing great things, and I am so honored to be here and speaking for them, and to now be on the board. I'm just really, really excited to see the change that that hopefully is going to be happening. So yes, now let's see if there's any questions. So the first question is an excellent question. You spoke about the AREDS vitamins. I was told that there is a large amount of zinc that can make macular degeneration progress. Is this true? And excellent question. So if we look at the AREDS, if we look at the participants in the AREDS trials, most of them were already taking a multivitamin, Centrum Silver. Macular degeneration zinc is kind of tricky. It's a bell-shaped curve. Most Americans, especially elderly Americans, are deficient in zinc. A deficiency is bad, so is too much zinc. So it is a bit of a bell-shaped curve. Every patient is different as far as that's concerned. That's where personalized nutrition comes into play. Some of us need the extra zinc, some of us don't. For practitioners recommending the AREDS 2 vitamins, you're safe to say use the one with lower amounts of zinc. So instead of using 80 milligrams, I would use the one with 25 milligrams. So that's an excellent question. A lot of debate on that. But again, you can have too little zinc, too much zinc. And we want the sweet spot in the middle. And that's why I think the 25 milligrams of zinc, the lower dose is just safer all around. Okay, the next question. You mentioned fatty fish. What if you can't eat those? Is there anything else to get the same effects? So fatty fish get their omega-3s from algae. So there is microalgae oil that you can use. Seaweed, nuts, and seeds are another source. So, okay, this is another question. When you are told that you have macular degeneration or any other eye disease, why does the doctor not tell you about nutrition? You know what? I love that question. And I actually, you're going to find me tearing up right now. I'm going to try not to. I don't know. I don't know why they don't talk about nutrition. We practitioners, I don't know. I don't know. I had a type 2 diabetic the other day, and I asked him, I said, what does your endocrinologist tell you about what to eat? Type 2 diabetes, right? And he looked at me, he said, Dr. Poteet, he just said, if it tastes good, spit it out. And we can no longer afford to carry this message. We have to start addressing diet. And you know, there's evidence to back it up. Everything I recommend, everything we recommend has to be evidence-based. And I tell you, the evidence on the Mediterranean diet, fatty fish twice a week, is overwhelming. Again, I don't know why we're not screaming this from the rooftops. The NIH researcher, the ophthalmologist, Dr. Emily Chu, who is one of the top researchers for the NIH in ophthalmology, is quoted as saying, it's time to take quitting a poor diet as seriously as quitting smoking. And we must, yeah. And I really do. I really do think we all should talk about it more. For people who want an eye doctor focused on nutrition, the Ocular Wellness and Nutrition Society is the professional Society for Eye Doctors with an Interest in Nutrition. They have a doctor locator, which I think is an excellent resource for doctors who are mindful of nutrition. So, okay, can autoimmune disease affect your diet? Well, first of all, I'm passionate about autoimmunity. I lecture on it. Autoimmunity affects your eyes in a tremendous way. Diet can affect autoimmunity. There's actually an autoimmunity diet. But yes, anything, so anything that involves inflammation is going to affect the eyes. If you're a diabetic, can you eat a lot of fruits? And I'm just going to say it depends. That depends. Things like berries, blueberries, low in sugar. The glycemic response is balanced by the fiber. Tons of blueberries, super important for you. The polyphenols in fruits actually decrease inflammation in the body and are super important for diabetes. Here's another question. Is chicken okay over red meat? If you looked at the data, we should be minimizing our intake of red meat. Chicken is always it's always better over red meat. Is there a cookbook that you recommend? A specific one, I would look for cookbooks that focus on the Mediterranean diet. That's what I would look at. There is an eye doctor who wrote a cookbook. Her name is Sandra Young. She is, she's a good cookbook for healthy foods that are healthy for ocular health. Okay. The thoughts on red light therapy, especially affecting eyes. So photobiomodulation is an exciting area, new area of research that I'm really excited to see where it goes. Red light therapy can affect mitochondrial function. And we know that mitochondria dysfunction kind of is a driver of chronic sustained inflammation. So I'm excited to see where the red light therapy goes. I think there's going to be good science on it now, and we'll see where it goes. I was told not to have beta carotene in vitamin A. There's different forms of vitamin A. Beta carotene, even though you've never smoked, there are different forms of vitamin A. I typically recommend not using beta carotene. So yeah, there's some evidence that it can increase lung cancer in smokers. And is tuna included in the SMASH diet? Listen, I love tuna. I do, but it is not included because tuna has high levels of mercury, and mercury, that's not good. It's just not good for us. So any other questions? So is there an over-the-counter vitamin other than AREDS that you would recommend? So when I say the AREDS vitamins, it's the AREDS vitamins formulation, and there are a lot of great companies that make the AREDS formulation. We have to be mindful and know that in the AREDS trials, most of the participants were already taking a Centrum vitamin, and they took the NIH vitamin and the AREDS formula on top of that. Again, it's so important we get our nutrients from diet, Mediterranean diet, but most of us are deficient in vitamin D3. Most of us are deficient in B vitamins. So a great multivitamin that in combination with an AREDS 2 vitamin, if you have macular degeneration. My passion is preventing macular degeneration. I talk to every single patient I see about diet, about what we can do to prevent the onset. Once I see clinical signs of drusen, of macular degeneration in my patients, they've had low-lying, sustained chronic inflammation for a long time. And if I can use diet to mitigate that risk, I'm going to start talking about it early. In the offspring of people with macular degeneration, if I have a patient come in that says, gosh, my mom has macular degeneration, she is getting shots in her eyes. What can I do? I start talking about diet. And, it's important the earlier we intervene, the greater the return on our investment of intervention. So.
All right, we'd like to thank everyone for coming today, especially you, Dr. Poteet. We appreciate the information. And just remember, everyone, that doctors can only speak about things that have gone through trials. So if it hasn't gone through a trial, they're not going to recommend it.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Other
Um,
than diet, other than diet.
yeah. Well, everything we recommend has to be evidence-based. We have to be able to back it up. Um, and so, yeah, so there's different types of trials, but yes, we do know, um, things that are health promoting and things to avoid, so.
Exactly. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us today, as well as everyone who came to attend this evening. We appreciate all that you do for us as a part of our medical board, and we want to thank everyone for their attendance because they help make these programs possible, and we appreciate that. So for the rest of the day, hope you all have a wonderful one, and we will see you the next time. Please don't forget to check our website for upcoming virtual programs, as well as programs that we are doing in person. So if you live in one of the cities that we are visiting, we hope that you come see us, and we'll take advantage of the in-person programs as well. Otherwise, have a great day.